Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into some really short but incredibly powerful ancient texts. They offer a completely different way of looking at what it means to make progress in our lives. It's not about slowly chipping away at this endless mountain of problems. Instead, it's about one single shift in perspective that, believe it or not, changes the entire landscape. You know that feeling, right? You finally solve one big issue, you overcome a challenge, and for a second, you feel great. But then you look up, and it just feels like there's this endless line of other problems waiting for their turn. Does it feel like you've even made a dent? Well, this whole feeling of scale, how much you've done versus how much is left, is exactly what we're going to explore today. So, how do these ancient texts flip that feeling on its head? Well, the Buddha starts with a really simple, really tangible analogy to get the point across. He starts small, with something you can literally see for yourself. Okay, so picture this. He scoops up a tiny little bit of dust on the tip of his fingernail, and then he asks his monks to compare that tiny, almost invisible speck of dust to the entire Great Earth. The whole planet. I mean, the difference in scale is just staggering. It's almost impossible to even wrap your head around. And then he asks this super simple question, which you can see here in the original Pali, katamam nu ko bohutaram. It just means, which of these is greater? The answer is, well, it's completely obvious, isn't it? But just hang on to that thought for a second. Now, this idea is so important that the text actually repeats it, but with different analogies, and each time the scale gets bigger. So we've moved from the solid earth to the vastness of water. This time, the comparison is between just 2 or 3 drops of water, like what you could just flick from your fingers, and all the water in the entire great ocean. Again, the contrast is just mind-blowing. And then, yep, you guessed it, he asks the exact same question. This repetition is totally on purpose. It's designed to build this rhythm, to really make you contemplate this immense difference over and over again. Which one is greater? And this brings us to the final escalation. We've gone from dust on a fingernail to drops in an ocean, and now we arrive at one of the most massive physical features on our entire planet. So for the final comparison, it's 7 tiny pebbles, each about the size of a mustard seed, versus the Great Himalayan mountain range, the king of mountains. It's the most dramatic example yet of the tiny versus the absolutely vast. For the very last time the question is asked, by now the answer is beyond obvious. The Earth, the ocean, the Himalayas, they are immeasurably greater. But the real question is, why keep asking this? What's the point? Right? We all get which one is bigger. So what is the actual point of all these parables? Well, this is where the entire teaching does a complete 180, and it's both surprising and honestly pretty profound. Here it is, the complete reversal. The Buddha explains that for a person who has had a moment of true insight, the great earth, the great ocean, the Himalayas, all that vast stuff represents the amount of suffering that has been completely exhausted and consumed. It's gone. And that tiny speck of dust, those few drops of water, those 7 little pebbles, that is all the suffering that is left for them to experience. The vast, overwhelming majority of it has already been dealt with, not by fighting it piece by piece, but through one profound shift in understanding. So what is this game-changing insight? This huge breakthrough actually has a specific name in the original texts, and it's not about getting some kind of superpower. It's about acquiring a totally new way of seeing. It's called Dhammakakkupapattilabho, which we can translate as the gaining of the Dharma eye. Think of the Dharma eye as a kind of insight that lets you see things as they really are for the first time. It's this irreversible moment where the fundamental nature of reality and of suffering just becomes crystal clear, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, gaining this Dharma eye means you finally understand that the near-endless cycle of struggle and rebirth, well, it isn't endless anymore. The chain has been broken. The texts use this amazing phrase for all the past suffering that's now gone, parikinam pariyadyanam. It means exhausted and consumed. It's been all used up. And what's left is now finite, it's measurable. In the context of these teachings, it's a maximum of 7 more lifetimes. Now, that might sound like a lot, but compared to the infinite cycle that came before it, it's like a few pebbles next to a mountain. And this brings us to our final thought for today. These ancient parables are suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the most significant victory we can achieve isn't about eliminating every single challenge one by one. Maybe the real breakthrough is a shift in vision so profound that it reveals that the vast majority of the struggle is already over.